let's turn now to Dr. Edmund Ghareeb. He's a senior scholar at the Jerusalem Fund's Palestine Center and the Washington Institute for Peace and Development. Great to have you on the program today. What do you make of the reports that Hamas has given its initial approval of a new US-backed proposal? How much hope should we have?
Well, it's apparently a surprise. I think many in Israel and the United States were surprised. The blame has been put on Hamas in the past, although not always fairly. But now it seems that there is this breakthrough. Hamas has decided that they are willing to accept promises, but also they want these promises to be written down. If they accept the first phase, a temporary pause for 6 weeks, then the United States, Egypt, and Qatar would continue to work for a permanent ceasefire and to make sure that the second and third phase of the original plans would be worked on. That is a significant development. Also, there is a report, we'll have to wait and see how accurate it is, that Hamas also said that they are willing, in the first phase, to release some Israeli soldiers who they have. If that's correct, these are two significant developments. Of course, the Israelis, how do they respond? We'll have to wait and see. The Israeli government in the past, they would say, have said different things, but at this time, the head of the Mossad was in Qatar, and then also the head of the CIA. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I mean, we've been here before, though, haven't we? It's hard to know how close we'll get to the finish line in terms of any of these significant proposals. But how long can Israel continue its operations in Gaza? And how reliant is it on the ongoing supplies of US military equipment in the meantime?
The Israelis have been facing a lot of pressure. There has been division within the Israeli establishment between, on the one hand, there are some of the military leaders as well as the security officials, senior security officials have a different perspective from the prime minister, as well as some of the right-wing ministers in the cabinet, like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, who have their own ideas. Netanyahu has been trying to buy time to prolong the conflict as long as possible, but Israel is coming under a lot of pressure up until now. They have not been able to achieve the objectives, or at least some of the objectives that they have set for themselves. The destruction of Hamas, the release of all the hostages, they have not achieved those. At the same time, yes, there's been destruction, heavy destruction within Gaza. Many people have been displaced. Many people, tens of thousands of people have died, and mostly women and children. And the Israeli government is coming under pressure. Yeah. Now, I think there's a new element as well, is how is the conflict in the U.S. And the pressure on President Biden now to step aside, how is that likely to change?
Well, let's get to that in just a moment. I did have a question on that for later on. Can Israel's largely part-time army, though, sustain a war on two fronts when we have Hezbollah firing rockets at Israel, Israel firing rockets at Lebanon? What are the wider implications potentially of a regional war here?
That's a very, very good question. I mean, on the one hand, you have Israel relies to a large extent, about something like 68% of its weaponry on the United States, something like around 27%, 26% from Germany. So that means that there have been recently, at least, the U.S. has put some hold on some heavy bombs, 2,000-pound bombs, to be sent to Israel. The Israeli army, apparently, according to a number of Israeli military leaders and as well as analysts, are saying that the Israeli army is becoming tired and they need a respite. They need to, and at the same time that we are seeing this, there are also the threats against Lebanon, that Lebanon could be turned turned back to the Stone Age at the same time, or another Gaza, or worse than Gaza even. The question is Israel really ready to go into another war while there are these conflicts within the Israeli government itself, and while there have been a number of casualties, and while it has not achieved the objectives it set for itself in in Gaza. And also the Israeli Prime Minister is becoming under pressure. There have been demonstrations last week, 300,000 people. Opponents hope to have a demonstration of close to 1 million. That's going to increase the pressure on him, but he wants to prolong it. And so I think the situation is becoming much more difficult. And the danger, if there is an escalation, I think we have seen recently escalation both by the Israelis. They've assassinated a number of Hezbollah commanders. At the same time, Hezbollah has attacked Israel, including 200 rockets a couple of days ago after the assassination of a military commander in Hezbollah. This poses a real danger because that means this war could expand. If it expands in Lebanon, it could go beyond Lebanon, and other actors in the region could play a major role, and that brings it to a new level.
And in the meantime, lawmakers here in the US are somewhat distracted by the recent debate and the debacle with the Democrats. How does that affect policy when it comes to Israel and Gaza? It's slipping on the headlines. You know, if there is a replacement, for example, with Biden, how does that affect it? And then the results in November, what does that mean for the conflict in Gaza?
Clearly, I think regardless of who wins, or they are going to be pro-Israel. At the same time, however, we might see now Biden may adopt a different policy, basically because he wants, one, to achieve to say that he has achieved something very significant if the ceasefire works. That would be one of the aspects of it. And he is willing to, now, he would be more willing to put some pressure on Netanyahu than previously. Nevertheless, at the same time, I don't think that Israel is going to easily make concessions unless there is real pressure put on them. So that is going to be one of the challenges before the administration.
All right, Dr. Edmund Ghareeb, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.